Hey guys, this is the second part of the video series on chess openings and it's on the Dutch defense. So the first thing I'm going to do is mention a few viewers from my stream on Twitch, and they are R. Ravi, who is the first subscriber on my channel, and Ravi is one of the reasons why I'm doing this video on the Dutch defense. He mentioned recently in my stream that he would like to learn this opening better. And then there is Buff Bane, who is a viewer and a subscriber on my stream. Mellow Mode Dude, aka the Bad Fish, he's a viewer and a subscriber on my stream, and he's also got a stream of his own. Mellow Mode Dude is a strong blitz player, so do check out his stream at Twitch. And last but not least, the King Charlescav, who was recently the top cheerer on my stream. And Charles is another strong chess player, and he has a son that he likes to take to soccer practice. So there you go. These are the good people that have been supporting me on my stream at Twitch, and they share the same passion that I have for this beautiful game. And in a way, they are also supporting this video because streaming and video making is hard work, and I appreciate all the help that I can get. So a big shout out with a thanks to them. And now moving towards the customary quote, and that quote is, "You may learn much more from a game you lose than from a game you win. You will have to lose hundreds of games before becoming a good player." Jose Raul Capablanca. So a quote from Jose Raul Capablanca, one of my favorite chess players, nicknamed the human chess machine. He was one of the best chess players from Cuba, and I think the quote is pretty self-explanatory, which is that we should not be disappointed or shy away from losses in chess because they are an inherent part of it. And I know it's difficult losing in chess, it hurts. I speak from personal experience, but if we can try to take our losses as an opportunity to learn from, whenever we lose a game, if we try and analyze it, where it was that we made a mistake and how we could improve on that and come back even stronger, we can develop more quickly as chess players. And like it said, failure is one of the best teachers. So there you go. And now moving towards the Dutch defense, and it's written on ichess.net. The Dutch defense is a chess opening for black against d4 and occurs after the moves d4 f5. It is a fighting chess opening as the black player immediately unbalances the position as early as move 1 by moving his f pawn. The Dutch defense is an exciting opening choice, especially at club level, and is a good option for players looking to win as black against d4. The reason for this is that many positions in the Dutch defense promise black more active play than in most other openings. Black is able to avoid early simplifications and can enter unbalanced positions, which allows him to play for more than equality. From a practical point of view, it's a clever opening choice for black to play the Dutch defense, as d4 players don't meet it that frequently and more often than not are not well booked up. So me myself being a d4 player, I do agree with that. I would rather play against some of the other lines of the queen's pawn game, like the Slav, semi-Slav, Nimzo-Indian, Queen's Gambit decline lines, as compared to the Dutch defense, which usually comes as a bad surprise when my black opponent decides to play the move f5. So not comfortable playing this particular opening as white, and that's why I am doing this video. And the Dutch defense is not used all that frequently, even at the top level, but more so at an amateur level, at the club level. It's an exciting opening for the black player. And Then on Wikipedia, it's written that historically white has tried many methods to exploit the kingside weaknesses such as the Staunton Gambit and Korchnoi attack. These are the two variations that we are going to do in the Dutch defense among others in the later part of the video. The Dutch has never been a mainline against d4 and is rarely seen in high-level competition, although a number of players including Alexander Alekhine, Bent Larsen, Paul Morphy and Miguel Najdorf have used it with success. Its most notable use may have been in 1951 when both world champion Mikhail Botvinnik and his challenger David Bronstein played in their 1951 World Championship match. So let's take a look at the moves that make up the Dutch defense. And white goes with the move d4 and now f5 by black, and this pawn on f5 now controls this midpoint square on e4, and this is always a strong square for the black player in this line, where ideally he could land a piece like the knight, and that would be a strong piece in this square. So there you go, these two moves make up the Dutch defense. And now a little history regarding the Dutch defense. Elias Steen, 1748 till 1812, was a Dutch chess master who recommended the defense as the best reply to d4 in his 1789 book. Siegbert Tarrasch, who was another very strong grandmaster and one of the most popular chess teachers in the early 20th century, rejected the opening as unsound in his 1931 work, The Game of Chess, arguing that white should reply with the Staunton Gambit, with white being better after this sequence of moves. So I have loaded the sequence of moves that was recommended by Siegbert Tarrasch against the Dutch defense for white on the analysis board for you, and we will just get into the moves immediately. So after d4 f5, what white goes for over here is e4, gambiting its e pawn. After pawn takes on e4, knight to c3, developing the queenside knight, and now knight f6 by black, and bishop to g5, and now c6 by black, preparing to play the move d5, which is going to lock the pawns. However, over here white plays f3, just telling black that it's not the pawn that I'm concerned with, but I want to go with developing moves. I want to go with initiative. After pawn takes on f3, white can go for a move like knight to f3, and in this position white has three minor pieces developed here as compared to black, which has just got one minor piece developed. So by gambiting a pawn, white is going for initiative. It is trying to develop its pieces much faster so it can have greater attacking chances. And this variation of the Staunton Gambit is called the Chigorin variation. And then we are going to move towards the other variations in the Dutch defense, of which one of them is the fianchetto attack. And starts off with the move d4, f5, and now simply g3 by white, preparing to fianchetto its light squared bishop on g2. And this bishop on g2 can both be a defensive piece if white decides to castle here, as well as an attacking piece via this diagonal. So there you go, this variation is called the fianchetto attack. And then the next variation in the Dutch defense is called the Rubinstein or Queen's Knight variation. So I'm going to load this next sequence of moves for you on the analysis board. Right, d4, f5, c4, and now a knight f6 by black, and knight c3 by white. So developing the queenside knight over here. This is a line that I have also played frequently against the Dutch defense. So this variation is called the Queen's Knight or Rubinstein variation. And then we are going to move towards the Leningrad Dutch variation. So I'm going to load this next sequence of moves for you on the analysis board. d4, f5, c4, knight to f6, and now g3 by white, preparing to fianchetto its bishop, and similarly g6 by black, preparing to fianchetto its dark squared bishop on g7. So now bishop to g2, bishop to g7, knight to f3, castling, and now d6 by black. And this now prevents white from bringing any pieces on this square e5. And now a knight c3 by white, developing its queenside knight, and now c6 by black. So there you go, we have the Leningrad Dutch variation. And another line that can be played in this variation, in the Leningrad Dutch variation, a second line that you can play is knight c6. So instead of playing c6 by black, what black can do over here is play the move knight to c6, basically going for a developing move instead of making a pawn move. So there you go, these are the two lines that you can play in the Leningrad Dutch variation. And the next variation that we are going to observe is a very popular variation which is known as the Stonewall variation. So I'm going to load this next sequence of moves for you on the analysis board. d4, f5, c4, knight to f6, g3 by white, e6, bishop to g2, bishop to e7, knight to f3, castling, and now d5. And this structure of the pawns is known as the Stonewall structure, and this square on e4 is heavily protected by black's pawn over here. And white proceeds over here with b3, opening up this diagonal for its its dark squared bishop, and the bishop can come on either a3 or b2. And now c6 by black, further solidifying the Stonewall pawn structure. And you can see that it's got a very solid pawn structure over here with the base pawn supporting the other pawns. And now white continues with a bishop to a3. So there you go, this is the classical variation of the Stonewall line. And another line that can be played in the Stonewall variation is a knight to c3. So instead of b3 over here, what white can go for is the move knight to c3, developing its queenside knight. And now black responds with c6, once again, solidifying its pawn structure. So these are the two lines that you can play in the Stonewall variation. And the next variation of the Dutch defense is called the Ilyin-Genevsky variation. So I'm going to load this next sequence of moves for you on the analysis board. d4, f5, c4, knight to f6, g3, e6, bishop to g2, bishop to e7, knight to f3, castling, and now d6 by black. So not playing the move d5, which would be the Stonewall variation, but instead going with the move d6. And this now prevents white from bringing any pieces on the square on e5. And now white continues with a knight c3, and black plays queen to e8, eyeing this diagonal for his queen. And another line that can be played, in fact, from over here, a couple of moves for white are possible, including the move queen to c2. And if not queen to c2, then what white can play is b3, once again opening up this diagonal for the dark squared bishop. The bishop can come to either a3 or b2. And this variation was named after Alexander Fyodorovich Ilyin, who was known with the party name Zinevsky, the Genevan, and was a Russian chess master, one of a handful of chess players to have won a game and have an even score against Jose Raul Capablanca. So I'm sure that must have felt amazing, winning against a player of Capablanca's caliber. And the last variation that I am going to show you is a very interesting variation, and this is something that I have started playing against my opponents who like to play the Dutch defense as black, and it's called the Korchnoi attack. So if you take a look on the analysis board, the moves are d4, f5 by black, and now white plays this odd looking move h3. And this is a flank pawn move, but h3 now prepares g4. And if black goes for a move like knight to f6, then simply g4 by white. Now after pawn takes on g4, pawn takes on g4, knight takes on g4, white has the move e4, uncovering an attack on this knight on g4 via white's queen. And the knight alone over here on g4 does not pose an immediate threat to white pieces. As such, this knight sits in a compromised square and can easily be harassed by white's pieces. And by gambiting a pawn, once again white is going for initiative and development over here. So this is this line is called the Korchnoi attack, and if you gambit the pawn, then it's called the Korchnoi gambit, which was named after Viktor Korchnoi, a very strong chess grandmaster from Russia who recently passed away. And he was said to have been one of the strongest chess players never to have become a chess world champion. And now we are going to go through a game that features the Korchnoi attack, in the Dutch defense. And this game was also played by Viktor Korchnoi, and his opponent is someone who is known as Hans-Jörg Quesnel. Hans-Jörg Quesnel was a Swiss champion, and he is an international master. And this game was played in 1979. So Viktor Korchnoi here is playing with the white pieces, and his opponent Hans-Jörg Quesnel is playing with the black pieces. So I'm going to load this game for you on the analysis board. And Korchnoi started with d4 and f5 by black, and now h3, the Korchnoi attack. Knight to f6 by black, and now g4 by white. Pawn takes on g4, pawn takes on g4, knight takes on g4, and now Korchnoi played e4. And d6 by black, and this opens up this diagonal for its light squared bishop, which now protects the knight on g4. Now a bishop to g5 by Korchnoi, g6, preparing to fianchetto black's dark squared bishop. But now f3, and now this knight on g4 is kicked. As such, knight to f6, now a knight to c3, developing white's queenside knight, c6 by black, and now queen to d2. And this is just a natural move for the queen. The queen over here on d2 now supports the bishop on g5, makes room for castling long for white, and the queen itself is developed. So this is something that I keep telling my viewers as well. If you can find a move that does more than one thing for you in just one move, then that is an awesome move. So this is just a natural move for white. Now a bishop to e6 by black, an odd looking bishop move. castling knight to d7 by black. And if you pause and take a look over here on the analysis board, then you can see that white has a lead in development. It has got more space to play with. Not only that, its pieces are more aggressively placed, they are more active. This bishop on g5 is very aggressive. There's rook on d1, which is supporting this queen on d2. The king is castled into safety, and in comparison, black is lagging in development. Its pieces are somewhat jumbled over here, especially the king, which is cramped for space. So behind on development over here, black. And now a king to b1 by white, which is always a good move, especially if your opponent has the dark squared bishop. Now bishop to g7 by Kinel, knight to h3 by Korchnoi, knight to h5, and now knight to f4, challenging the knight on h5. And Kinel took this knight here on f4, and after queen takes on f4, black cannot immediately castle because the white queen prevents it from doing that. So instead, Kinel played queen to b6, and this now attacks this pawn on d4 combined with the dark squared bishop. As such, Korchnoi moved his queen back to d2, supporting that pawn. Queen to c7 by Kinel, and now a queen to e3 by Korchnoi. So both players doing a little bit of maneuvering. Knight to b6, and now d5 by white. And this bishop, which was sitting comfortably on e6, is now threatened, and Kinel moved it back to f7, even though he had the option of taking this pawn with the c pawn, but given his lack of development, it's understandable that he did not want to open up lines over here, and especially after the pawn take, the e file would have opened up. So Kinel, already behind on development, did not go with this aggressive continuation. So anyways, bishop to f7, and now a4 by white. In case black decides to castle long, white has this pawn running on the a file. a6 by black, and now e5 by white, which is basically a pawn sacrifice. So after bishop takes on e5, Korchnoi simply played f4, further harassing this bishop on e5. And now a bishop to g7 by black, pawn takes on c6, pawn takes on c6, and now the queenside pawn structure for black is damaged, and castling long is no longer as appealing as it was before. So bishop to g2, developing the last minor piece for white. Knight to c8, which is a passive move for black, and the knight on c8 is doing pretty much nothing, although it does add a certain amount of defensive measure to these two pawns on d6 and e7. Now a knight to e4 by Korchnoi. The knight on c3 was already under attack by black's dark squared bishop, and it could have taken it at any time, so just makes sense moving the knight to a more aggressive square. King to f8 by black. So Kinel, having left castling so deep into the game, now having to contend with this odd looking king move, and maybe he didn't want to castle over here given white's active pieces on the queen side, especially this rook, which has this open h file over here. So just moving the king away from the range of the white queen. Now a bishop to h6, pinning the dark squared bishop on g7, a rook to b8, and this now threatens to take on b2. However, Korchnoi played the move queen to c3, exploiting the pin against this bishop, which is tied to the defense of its king, and this also supports the pawn on b2. So now a rook to g8, supporting the bishop on g7, knight to g5, bishop takes on h6, rook takes on h6, and now a rook g7, and this pawn on h7 is just about to fall, and the h file is going to open up completely for white's pieces here. And yeah, after knight takes on h7 check, king to g8 by Kenel. Now queen to h3 by Korchnoi, queen to b7 with immediate threats of mate on b2. However, knight to f6 was played by Korchnoi here, and this checks the black king, and black cannot immediately take this knight, otherwise it's simply gonna get mated by a rook to h8. As such, king to f8, now a rook to h8 check, and Kenel blocked this check with the bishop to g8. But now Korchnoi got in the move knight to d7, and this now forks black's rook on b8 as well as the king. So after king to f7, knight takes on b8, queen takes on b8. So now the rook on b8 is gone, and Korchnoi has eliminated the threat which was hanging over his head on b2. Now bishop takes on c6 by Korchnoi, knight to b6, trying to get the knight to a more aggressive square, but it's just a bit too late for black here. And this is a completely dominating game by Viktor Korchnoi. You can see all of white's pieces are very active, and all of them are doing something, and in comparison black's pieces are very passive and mostly tied to defending. So a completely dominating game by Korchnoi. Now a rook to e1 by white, eyeing this pawn on e7, and this now also threatens queen to e6 check. So king to f6, Kenel making the last moves of this game. Queen to h4 check, g5 by black, pawn takes on g5, and here Kenel finally resigned. And it's pretty much hopeless, because after rook takes on g5, the rook gets pinned, and black's bishop over here is already tied to the defense of its queen. And black is down on material over here, and even from a positional point of view, its pieces are just too passive as compared to white's more active pieces. So there you go, a completely dominating game by a very good strong chess grandmaster Viktor Korchnoi, who sadly passed away recently, featuring the Korchnoi attack, which I personally found very interesting. And I hope you enjoyed the game, and I hope you also enjoyed this video, because here I am going to end this. And as always, your comments and your suggestions are most welcome. If you enjoyed this video, please do hit the like button, and till next time, take care.